Hello and welcome to Arnie's Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Phantom Drummer Ventnor. The Isle of Wight had its share of peculiar tales, but none were whispered with as much fear and reverence as the story of the Phantom Drummer of Ventnor. Nestled between steep cliffs and the restless sea, the town seemed perpetually shrouded in mist, its cobblestone streets echoing with history and the occasional unexplained sound. Holly Arnold, a lifelong resident with a knack for curiosity, often dismissed the local legends. That was until she heard the drumbeats herself. It began on a chill autumn evening. Holly had been walking home from the theatre, where she worked part-time as a stagehand. The wind howled through the narrow alleys, carrying with it a faint, rhythmic drumming. She stopped in her tracks, straining her ears. The sound was faint but unmistakable, a steady beat, like a distant heartbeat, growing louder with each step she took. At first, Holly assumed it was a street performer. Ventnor often attracted eccentric artists. But as she neared the source, the drumming stopped abruptly. The silence was so sudden, so complete, it felt oppressive. She turned in a slow circle, her breath visible in the cold air. There was no one there. The next day, Holly mentioned the incident to her friend Clara, a history buff with a love for local lore. Clara's eyes widened. "You've heard the drummer boy," she said. Holly asked, raising an eyebrow. Clara leaned in. "It's an old story, dating back to the Napoleonic Wars. Legend has it that a young drummer boy was stationed here, signaling messages to troops with his drum. One night, during a violent storm, he disappeared. Some say he drowned, swept off the cliffs. Others believe he was murdered by smugglers. His drum was found washed ashore, but his body was never recovered. Ever since, people have reported hearing his drum beats." Holly laughed nervously. Clara's expression remained serious. "You're not the first." The suggestion lingered in Holly's mind, an itch she couldn't scratch. That night she lay awake listening. Around midnight the drumming began again. It was faint at first, like raindrops on a tin roof, but it grew louder, more insistent. Heart pounding, Holly grabbed a flashlight and jacket, determined to uncover the truth. The sound led her through the winding streets of Ventnor, past the darkened shops and the sleeping town square. It pulled her toward the cliffs, where the sea raged below. Holly's flashlight beam cut through the mist, illuminating jagged rocks and treacherous paths. The drumming was deafening now, as if the drummer boy was just ahead, urging her onward. She reached a secluded cove, hidden from the town above. The moonlight glinted off something metallic half buried in the sand. Holly knelt to uncover it, a rusted drum, its surface scarred and weathered by time. As her fingers brushed against it, the drumming ceased. The silence was so profound, it felt as though the world had stopped breathing. The voice was low and guttural, sending a chill down her spine. Holly whirled around, her flashlight trembling in her hand. Standing at the edge of the cove was a figure in a tattered military uniform, his face obscured by shadows. But she could see the drum slung over his shoulder, its skin gleaming unnaturally in the moonlight. Holly demanded, though her voice betrayed her fear. "You've heard my call." Before Holly could react, the figure raised his drumsticks and began to play. The sound was hypnotic, resonating in her chest like a second heartbeat. The world around her blurred, and she felt herself being pulled toward the drum, toward the figure. She tried to resist, but her body betrayed her, moving of its own accord. When she awoke, she was back on the cliff path, the first rays of dawn breaking through the mist. The drum was gone, and so was the figure. But Holly felt different, as if a part of her had been replaced. She heard the drumming now, even in the absence of sound. It followed her, an ever-present rhythm that no one else could hear. Over the following weeks, Holly's friends noticed the change. She was distant, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. Clara confronted her, but Holly could only shake her head. "I can't explain it." The drumming grew louder at night, sometimes accompanied by faint whispers. Holly's dreams became vivid and nightmarish, visions of the sea swallowing her whole, the boy's lifeless eyes staring at her from the depths. She tried to drown out the noise with music, but the phantom drum beats always pierced through. One evening, while poring over old records at the local library, Holly discovered something chilling. Clara had been right about the drummer boy, but there was more to the story. The boy had been accused of betraying his regiment to enemy forces and was executed by his comrades, his body thrown into the sea as punishment. His restless spirit, consumed by injustice, had sought vengeance ever since. As Holly read, the drumming began, loud and relentless, as if urging her to stop. Books fell from the shelves and the lights flickered. Holly ran, the sound chasing her through the empty library. By the time she reached her apartment, she was trembling. That night she dreamed of the cove again. This time the drummer boy stood closer, his hollow eyes fixed on her. "I'll restore my honor," he said. Terrified but resolute, Holly returned to the cove the next evening, armed with a plan. She had uncovered records proving the boy's innocence, and she carried the documents with her. The drum beats grew deafening as she approached the shore, but she pressed on. The figure appeared again, more vivid and menacing than before. Holly held out the papers, shouting over the noise. "You were wronged." The boy paused, his expression softening as he reached for the documents. The drumming ceased, replaced by the gentle lapping of waves. Thank you." Holly collapsed, exhausted but relieved. The drum beats never returned, but the experience left its mark. On stormy nights, she still dreamed of the boy, but now he smiled, his spirit finally at peace. And in the silence, Holly found her own. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had a great day.